All right. Okay, so I first want to do a introduction for Monique. Monique Middlekauff has her PhD in exercise physiology from the University of Utah. She's also a registered clinical exercise physiologist, a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and she's board certified in lifestyle medicine. And Monique continues to publish research in the field of exercise science, is also an exercise is medicine level 3 credentialed provider, and she's a certified higher education teacher specialist, and really just loves challenging people to pursue deeper knowledge and understanding. So Monique actually manages the lifestyle medicine department here in Twin Falls, and her goal is to pursue health and overall well-being through evidence-based practice. And she believes wellness comes in many forms, and she seeks to encourage you exactly where you are and challenge you to reach more. So first of all, thank you, Monique. We're actually doing this webinar together.
Yes, hi, Mac.
Hi, thanks for coming and just sharing your wealth of knowledge on fitness with us. I think this is going to be fantastic. So welcome. And I'm just going to let you take it away.
Excellent. Well, if you have any questions as we're going, please feel free to hold on to them. You can send them through the messenger at any time and we'll get to them at the end. But today I want to talk to us specifically about the benefits of exercise, especially how that applies to the weight loss piece. We're going to talk about benefits of exercise as it relates to adults. For those who might already have pre-existing conditions, we're going to explain the principles of energy balance and metabolism and explore current fads in health and fitness. We want to make sure that if we're making decisions or we're investing our time and our money, that we're doing it in a way that is the most beneficial. And ultimately, I want to help you decide what thought or product to skip and then what to do instead. What's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck? So I think we've had this question that's kind of been an ongoing question about, should we focus our efforts more towards losing weight, or should we focus our efforts more towards improving our cardiovascular fitness? And we know that research just shows us that cardiorespiratory fitness, it's an important vital sign and it's a stronger predictor of mortality than is obesity. So if you look at different fitness categories, of those who have the highest fitness categories and those who have the lowest fitness categories, we're seeing that as one of the highest predictors of mortality. And if we look at things like blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, or smoking or body mass index, we know that fitness is one of the things that can help to buffer some of those other behaviors. So improving our fitness is so important. When we look at the benefits of exercise, I really could spend an hour just talking about this. So I've sort of chosen the things that are going to be the most helpful for us to know. And if we look at things like cardiometabolic conditions, we can see that we have a significantly lower cardiovascular incidence and mortality, specifically in heart disease and stroke, lower rates of hypertension, lower rates of type 2 diabetes for those who are consistently exercising. Now, that's not just based on weight category. That's on for those who experience exercise on a regular basis. We see big improvements in brain health. So looking at a reduced risk of dementia, improved cognitive function, which we could all benefit from. And we notice that we have that increased creativity and memory storage following a bout of aerobic activity. Our sleep quality is improved, and we have lower maybe an experience of feelings of anxiety and depression, even with those who already have existing clinical syndromes. And a reduced incidence of depression. We know, especially in the state of Idaho, that this is a big problem. Exercise is one of the tools that we have in our tool belt to help combat that. Looking at cancer, if you have cancer in your family history, I think it's extremely helpful to know that exercise is one of the tools that we can use to lower our rates of bladder, breast cancer, colon, endometrial cancer, esophageal cancer, kidney, stomach, and lung cancers. That's a pretty large group of cancers that can be reduced in risk because of our exercise. It's a big deal. Now, weight status. This is the reason why we're all here. Reduced risk of excessive weight gain. Now, I think this is where exercise really shines the brightest. It helps us prevent weight regain. So we know that the nutrition piece is so important to help us take it off. That's without question. But we know that exercise really plays a very vital role in helping us keep our weight off. And it kind of has that additive effect that we have an even better experience when we combine dieting with exercise. Okay, so let's say you've already been diagnosed with breast cancer or colorectal cancer or prostate cancer. We see reduced risk of mortality due to that specific condition. Or let's say you've already been diagnosed with osteoarthritis. Oftentimes the feeling is, oh, my joints hurt, I should be doing less or less exercise. But we actually see the exercise help to decrease the pain associated with osteoarthritis and improve the function and quality of our lives. Hypertension is a big thing. So this means high blood pressure. And we're seeing a reduced risk of the progression of cardiovascular disease. Often we see hypertension as sort of the very initial or indicator stages. Exercise helps to attenuate that. So we're not seeing as much of a progression into cardiovascular disease. And we're also seeing a reduced risk of increased blood pressure over time. It's a big deal. Type 2 diabetes, we're also seeing that reduction in mortality. And if you look at individual markers like hemoglobin A1C, which is like that 3-month average indicator of blood sugar, we're looking at blood pressure, blood lipids, and body mass index, we're seeing a reduction in the progression of the disease indicators. And oftentimes we're seeing a complete reversal of type 2 diabetes, which is a big deal. Multiple sclerosis, improved walking and improved physical fitness, dementia, and some cognitive conditions with impaired executive function, improved cognition. I could stop right here, and I don't know if that gets you excited, but that gets me so excited because no matter if we're completely healthy or if we have things that we're already dealing with, our bodies can experience such incredible benefits because of our experience with exercise. Now, I'm the type of person that I want to know the why behind the what. So if we know that those are the benefits that we can get based on our experience with exercise, how much do we need to do? Give me the bottom line. Show me what I need to do. So we know there's kind of 3 large categories. We can look at aerobic exercise, and you can also use the word cardiovascular exercise. They're interchangeable. We can look at strength training, and we can look at flexibility. Now, if we're looking at the first category of aerobic exercise, we know that if we're working at a moderate intensity, which would be things that you can feel like you're exercising, but it's not overly burdensome or it's not too intense, we want to get anywhere between 2.5 to 5 hours per week. Breaking that down, the bare minimum is 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's what that is practically. But let's say we want to kick the intensity up a notch. This is the intensity where it feels harder, that we're not able to talk comfortably through our exercise. We need fewer minutes. We just need 1.25 hours to 2.5 hours per week. That's a really good amount of time. Okay, we also need strength training. And the strength training piece, if I can tell you from a weight loss perspective and kind of the magic bullet, strength training is where it's at. And often we feel less comfortable with this piece, and I'll talk about it here in a few moments. But there's no CDC guideline based on the time that we need for strength training. This piece is more focused on making sure we're doing the right type of strength training, meaning that we're working all major muscle groups 2 days a week or more. Let's say you're enjoying it. Can you do it 5 days a week or 6 days a week? Absolutely. But if we're looking at bare minimum health benefits, we need 2 days a week or more. Now, flexibility is something that helps with our posture. It helps with our balance. It helps with the way our body functions. There's no set time. We want to work all major muscle groups, and the intensity for flexibility is very low. We shouldn't be seeing high increases of heart rate or respiration rate. This feels fairly gentle, but it also helps our body perform and feel so much better. Okay, we're shifting gears into energy balance and metabolism. So if we know that exercise is so good for us and we know what we need to do from a time perspective, I think it's helpful to know how can I help my body be in the best position to improve my body composition. And energy balance and metabolism plays such a huge role in that. Now let's focus on the centerpiece. This is looking at the maintenance. We see on one side food intake and one side energy spend. So you can think about consumption and expenditure. When these things are equal, our body weight is going to be stable. So let's say from an exercise perspective, we join a weight loss challenge, we're excited about it, we start increasing our physical activity. If we increase our intake or our calorie intake right along with our energy expenditure, we're going to see a maintenance. We won't see a change in our body composition at all. And if we look over on the left-hand side of the screen for caloric surplus, let's say we do significant amount of work with our exercise, we're feeling very proud of ourselves and we reward ourselves with food, we might actually end up gaining weight while doing a significant amount of exercise. We know that energy balance is what helps us to actually take the body fat off. So if we look over on the right hand side and look at the caloric deficit, our energy spend, that's what we're doing with our resting metabolic rate. That's what we're doing with our exercise and our movements throughout the day. We need our food intake to be less than that for us in order to take body fat off. Okay, so metabolism is confusing, and a lot of the times this gets a little bit muddled and complicated. And just if we break it down to its most simple form, metabolism is a sum or a total of all of the chemical reactions that occur in living cells. So we can say in our body. It's the sum of everything that's happening. And that might feel a little bit abstract or confusing, but I like to think about this as the grand total of all of the energy required to keep you alive. Now, this is way more than just exercise, right? We're talking about things like breathing. That takes work. So does cellular regeneration or digestion or wound healing or infection prevention or physical activity or thinking or communicating. I'm talking with my hands as I'm saying this. That takes energy. But when we think about metabolism, it's the total of all of that. So sometimes my brain likes to play on one component of that, and they're missing the big picture that it's all of the things together, all the things combined. So how does metabolism work? Well, we know that energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed. So if we look at the big grand total of all of the activity that we're doing throughout the day, and that might be activity that you know you're doing with physical activity, or it might be things like digestion or pumping your heart that you have no control over naturally. So we can see the first component here is resting metabolic rate. Now, if you look at the graph on the right-hand side of the screen and look at that big chunk that says resting metabolic rate, take a peek at how big that is in comparison to the other components. Resting metabolic rate makes up a significant component of our total energy expenditure. This is where we're seeing the biggest bang for our buck. Where else do we spend energy? We spend it while we're digesting food, and we would call that the thermic effect of food. So it's going to take work to break down our food for certain. And we can also see something, hello, we're talking about it today, our exercise, right? This is our activity energy expenditure. We have complete control over our exercise. And the next one as well. This might be an acronym that you might not use very frequently, but it's called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is what I like to think about as general body movements. I'm getting dressed in the day. I'm showering. I'm moving. I'm getting in and out of my car. It's not exercise, but it's also not nothing. Those movements that we do really add up, and they do contribute to our overall total energy expenditure. Now, I just blew this picture up a little bit bigger so that we can see it. So if we look at our resting metabolic rate, actually, let's go up to the top. Let's look at our activity energy expenditure first. Now, the key here is that the black is things that we cannot modify. Yellow are partially modifiable, and green are completely modifiable. So if we're looking at our activity in the day, we know that there are some genetic traits that we can modify. Through the study of epigenetics, we know that there's some traits that we can turn on and turn off. It's very encouraging to me. But some things like our age and our sex, we are not able to modify those. So where do we get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of our activity, energy expenditure? It comes in our environment. What are we doing in and out of our day? Do we have a work environment where we're sitting down a lot, or are we able to stand and move around? Are we spending our time exercising, or are we skipping it because we're tired? That's where we have the biggest opportunity to make a change. Now, if we're thinking about the thermic effect of food, there's a lot of things that go into this, but typically our diet composition is where we're going to find a big bang for your buck. If we're eating a lot of processed foods that already have broken down a lot of the energy, we don't have to work as hard. But if we have more whole foods in their natural state, our body's going to actually have to work harder, and that thermic effect of food will grow larger. We know that we can control our physical activity, our weight status, and insulin resistance is also partially modifiable. Now, check out how large that chunk is, right? Resting metabolic rate contributes to such a big chunk of this. So our fat-free mass and our fat mass, hello, This is where it's at. This is what we can control. When we increase our fat-free mass, and just so you know what that is, that's our muscle mass. That's our bones, our skin, our hair, our nails. That fat-free mass has no fat present, but especially our muscle mass is what helps to increase that resting metabolic rate. We know that our age and sex, again, not something that we can change. In our genetics, we can modify them with epigenetics. Okay, so the quickest and easiest way, if I can give you the golden nugget to take home today, the best way to increase total energy expenditure is through physical activity, and then ultimately, more longer term, changing your fat-free mass. When we have increased muscle mass, we're not only stronger, but we also have a significantly higher metabolic rate. So sometimes when I say this, people go, oh, no, I do not want to get bigger. Amen, right? I'm right there with you. Increased muscle mass does not mean larger in size. This means that we're making our muscles that are on our skeleton more effective and more efficient, and we're using that in a better way. It's going to increase our metabolic rate. Now, what happens when we diet alone? Dieting alone, I would never say is bad or problematic, but we know that when we do it without exercise, it can cause a downregulation, or we could also say a temporary slowdown of your resting metabolic rate, which means you have to eat fewer calories in order to sustain that body fat loss. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about some current fads or thoughts or questions that we run into quite frequently. Now, I know some common misconceptions is that muscle will turn into fat if you stop exercising, especially if you've had an athletic or a competitive background. This is something that's fairly pervasive, but we know the types of tissues are completely different. What is the component that we have to work on? Hunger or appetite. If we stop exercising, our appetite might stay high, but our energy expenditure will stay low. That'll tip us in the scale of adding body fat. Okay. Doing ab exercises will reduce belly fat. Wouldn't that be nice? I think it would be so nice if that were real. But that's not how it works. We can't spot reduce. If we're doing, let's say, a calf raise exercise, it's going to help improve the way that muscle functions, but it's not going to remove or reduce the fat that's surrounding that area. That's what we have to do with our diet. Doing our exercise will help improve the skeletal muscles that we have, but it doesn't reduce body fat. Okay, fasted cardio is more effective. Now, this is one of those things that has been more popularized, but we know it actually doesn't matter. Do the type of fasted or fed state that's going to help you perform at your best. We know overeating is never the idea, but making sure that you have proper fuel for exercise is very important. Okay, I hear this actually from a lot of physician groups. Walking is all the exercise you need, and I would say there's a component of that is so beautiful because it doesn't have to be complex to be fantastic, but we know we're missing strength training if we're just talking about walking. So we need walking plus strength training if that's the pathway we want to walk down. Okay, stretch before you exercise. I like to say stretch and hold after exercise, stretch and move before exercise. We want to do an active warm-up before, as opposed to spending our time doing a lot of stretch and hold activities beforehand. It used to be very popular, but we know it's a higher rate of injury if so. Okay, fancy and complicated exercise is more effective. Wrong. It's really not more, it's not more effective. If you like things that are complicated, or if you like things that are quote unquote fancy, absolutely go for it. But if you want to master the basics and nail them, you are right on the right track. Okay, oftentimes I hear I have to eat first thing in the morning to start my metabolism. Well, if you look back and you think about how metabolism works, we know the thermic effect of food is relatively small. Most of the time it's less than 10% of the total expenditure. So if we're thinking maybe that we have to jumpstart our metabolism or somehow it hasn't been working, we have really missed the bigger picture of how metabolism works. Now, if you want to eat first thing in the morning, awesome, but let's make sure we know why. Okay, next thought. To lose weight, I'm going to start with my diet. I'm giving you a high five if this is you, right? Because losing weight is hard and having all of the tools available to you is fantastic. But we know that if we're only dieting alone, that we can cause muscle loss and we can decrease our metabolism. So if we kind of think back and how that works, that means we're going to have to eat fewer calories and then fewer calories because our resting metabolic rate is now lower and fewer and fewer and fewer. There has to be an endpoint to that game. So strength training and dieting, they're an ideal pair together because strength training preserves muscle mass and it makes it significantly easier to lose weight. Okay, have you heard this? I exercise regularly so I can eat whatever I want. Oh gosh. So it is true for some people, right? Depending on their metabolism, their genetic environment, how that works, they might be able to do that. But we need to consider lots of things like performance and energy and overall inflammation and sleep quality and disease risk. We can easily get a false sense of security if weight loss isn't on the table for us, that we're doing okay if we're not exercising. Or we can get an idea that we can just eat whatever we want. But it does matter what we eat, and it does matter what we do. I like this graphic that says, I eat cupcakes for breakfast, cookies for lunch, a banana pudding for dinner, and I don't gain any weight. And we sort of all hate that person. Okay, I prefer to do cardio because lifting weights will make me bulky. This is very common. We know that overeating will make all of us bulky regardless of the exercise that we do. If we're in a caloric surplus, meaning that we're eating more calories than we're using in our day, it will make us bulky. And oftentimes this happens when people start to exercise because we have an increased appetite and we start to overeat, and that creates that feeling that weights are making me bulky. But it really isn't the way that it works. Cardiovascular exercise, it's extremely important. And just doing cardio is good, but we know again that having that paired together is where the magic is. It's similar. I like to think about, for people who are very concerned about getting very bulky, I like to think of the analogy about being concerned about driving a car because you don't want to turn into a race car driver. We know it's actually extremely unlikely. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of work to put on a lot of muscle, especially for females, because we don't have that hormonal environment to work in a way that helps us put on a lot of muscle or be in an anabolic state. Okay, I love training, and some of us fit in this category, right? I love exercising, I love training, and I'd rather skip my sleep and get exercise in. Well, we know that's not a good strategy either, because it's important that we rebuild and repair during our sleep cycle. We break down during our exercise, we repair in our sleep cycle. So sleep is vital for repair, it's vital for memory storage and immune function. And skipping sleep for exercise, it's actually not helpful. It can be harmful. But we also know that exercise itself will help improve your sleep. I love this graph because we see 67% of those who are doing vigorous exercise are reporting high quality sleep on almost every work night. If we look at those who are doing no activity, they're only reporting that 39% of the time. Exercise helps to improve our sleep. Okay, I'm exhausted, so I know I got in a good workout. I hate the saying train insane or remain the same, because we know that any person can make another person tired. I could ask you all to go run 10 miles, to do 100 burpees, 25 pull-ups or whatever, and that would put a fatigue state, but fatigue does not equal change. And random exercises don't create the ideal change we need. Exercise needs to be appropriate for your fitness level, so start right where you are, in the right intensity, with the right focus, for the right duration.
Hey, Mac. Monique. I apologize for interrupting. This is Lisa Gonzer. Someone has us on hold, and we're hearing a lot of background music and noise.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know.
Let's see here.
You might have to go in and mute everybody manually, Mac.
1 second. Thank you, Lisa. Let's see here. Lisa, are you still hearing music?
Okay, I think that improved the sound. Can you hear us?
We don't hear music anymore.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Right. Okay. Back to you, Monique.
Super. You gave me an opportunity to get a drink of water, so it worked out great. Okay, wearable technology is a big thing that we like to talk about, and sometimes we can have the feeling if my watch says that I hit my physical activity goal, I know that I'm done for the day. Well, I talk with my hands, and my hands record all of my movement throughout the day, whether I'm sitting on my behind or standing up. So we can rely so much on technology that we forget to actually remember if we have gotten in our appropriate physical activity of the day. Remember to check in and see how do you feel, regardless of what feedback you're getting from your device, because technology should be a tool but not a replacement for our brain. Now, I just wanted to throw this up in case you are wondering about the best device for you. And if you like to wear a heart rate tracker or monitor, in this graph, we can see that the higher the bar, the worse or less predictable or less accurate that device is. So we want to look at the ones that have the lowest amount of error. And we can see on the left-hand side of the screen, I actually wear this. This is the Apple Watch 2. It has approximately about a 12% error rate, which is a fairly high error rate. But if you look in the center of the screen and look at the Polar H7, that's a chest strap that can be worn just right around kind of the base of your chest that is able to predict with much more accuracy your heart rate. And so I like to actually pair these two together. I just want to give you a quick tip if that's something that you like to do. You can get them on Amazon for about $37, and it's just a helpful thing. We also see that the Polar A360 is a really great tool as well, and the Fitbit Charge 2 tends to have a fairly low error rate as well. I just think it's helpful to know that not all fitness trackers are really monitoring our exercise with accuracy, so if we're relying on them for our feedback, sometimes we can get a picture that might not be perfectly accurate. Oh, there we go. Okay. Some quick things. So if we're looking at things like ab toning devices versus strength training, we know that these devices are heavily marketed towards us, but they only activate the outer muscle layer by electrical stimulation. It doesn't improve our fitness in any form. It's not activating deep core muscles, and we know ultimately that spot reduction does not work. So strength training raises our metabolism, it strengthens our muscles, bones, and joints, it increases our confidence, it helps to reduce body weight and improve body composition, which is what we're working on, and it improves our immune function and our performance. So do this, pick strength training out of the two. We know it's very alluring to see things that are in the 10-minute trainer family, and not specifically to call them out. There's lots of programs that tend to get us in the 5-minute, 7-minute range, and we know that any exercise is much, 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 much better than nothing at all. But if we're thinking that we're meeting the physical activity guidelines and we're meeting those minimum thresholds, we're actually not doing what we need to. We want to choose a physical activity guidelines to either do the vigorous option of 75 minutes a week or the moderate option of 150 minutes a week, and either of those need to be paired with strength training. That's so, so important. We're marketed oftentimes in our social media and our different feeds throughout our life with things like waist wraps or trainers. Celebrities promote them quite frequently. But we know that if we're just redistributing our fat instead of actually addressing the cause of the body fat accumulation, we're going to run into additional problems, like raising the intra-abdominal pressure, which can cause damage to the pelvic floor, leading to significant incontinence. It can cause long-term damage to anatomical structures like our rib cage, and it doesn't improve health or fitness in any way. But remember that things that are just on appearance don't provide lasting results. What works? Consistently eating less calories than you use in a day. That results in weight loss. And specifically combining a caloric deficit with strength training, I know I'm a broken record, but it really does help preserve muscle mass while you lose body fat. So what should we do with strength training? For some of us, this feels very natural and we feel comfortable. And for others of us, it feels very unclear and ambiguous. We know that the time frame is 2 days a week or more, but I encourage you to explore with different types. You can use weights in dumbbells or barbells. You can use machines that are targeted for specific exercises, which are really, really good if you have pre-existing injuries. Body weight exercises are fantastic, and you can even do those at home if you don't have access to the gym. Resistance bands are fantastic too. So if you've tried one thing and it wasn't fantastic for you, keep trying, keep looking, because we want to do this for the rest of our lives. So we want to spend time doing something we actually enjoy. Just do whatever you can manage. So if you find that you are able to lift a lot of weights, wonderful. But if you're starting in 3-pound weights are challenging for you, I am celebrating that with you, because we want to start right where we are with a weight level that's going to be a bit challenging and working all major muscles, our upper body, our lower body, our core. We know other things that we should do, aerobic exercise. This is so important for our heart, our blood vessels, things that you're probably very familiar with, right? Walking, hiking, biking, ellipticals, rowers, swimming, they're all wonderful. We want it to be moderate to vigorous. So if we're just taking a stroll or a leisurely walk, it's good. But that's really not going to get in that moderate zone or a vigorous zone. So we want to push ourselves. Give yourself a little bit of a challenge. We should hit about once a week the spot where it's feeling pretty tough. That is going to help improve our fitness and really build kind of a base that we'll be able to build on. Find a type of exercise that you enjoy. Okay, so things that we wanted to do, we wanted to discuss the benefits of exercise. We wanted to explain the principles of energy balance, explore current fads, and help you decide what to do and what to skip. But I want to leave you with just a few thoughts. Sometimes when we are starting something new, our mind can tell us maybe the most negative or the most difficult parts of maybe that shame cycle. So if you've ever had the thoughts of, I'm so embarrassed of how far I have to go, remind yourself and boast to yourself that you can do difficult things. And if you've thought that maybe I've never been this out of shape before and I don't even know how I got here, remind yourself that you have made it through 100% of your bad days and that you can do this too. You can do hard things. If you've maybe had a base of fitness and you're coming back after a long time, remind yourself that you're choosing something better and walking into it this time. You're bringing some wisdom along the way. You're not starting at ground zero. You're starting with something. And I love the graphic that says, be careful how you talk to yourself because you are listening. So remind yourself to speak kindly. If you're injured, remind yourself that you're going to do what you can do and let go of the rest. If something has happened that has been out of your control and it might not be your fault, you can take responsibility regardless of who is at fault. And maybe you've struggled with the follow-through in the past. And you think, gosh, I'm terrible with follow-through. I never do what I said I can do. Remind yourself that you're a person of character. You're a person of integrity. You keep your word to yourself. Build an environment to make it as easy as possible to succeed. Pack a bag in advance. Put the music on that you like. Do the things that are going to help you stay in that environment that's motivating and encouraging. Be in a culture of other people who are exercising. It'll help you stay on track. And you might be right in this spot to say, well, holy cow, I don't even know what I'm doing. But remind yourself that you can learn new things even if it's uncomfortable at first. This challenge has so many resources available to you and so many different ways that you can get involved and learn if you haven't done that in the past. I love the statement that I can't go back and rewrite the beginning, but I can start right now and change the ending. You can start right now and change the genetic future through epigenetics. You can change what your weight status looks like. You can change the way your body feels, and that is so encouraging to me. Now, these are just some resources that are available to you. And if you're in that spot to say, I really don't know what to do, and I might want to try some different things, this is in the guide that you are sent. And so you can look at them and see what might be available in your area, because there is this beautiful environment of people who want to help support you and help teach you the things that are so important. I just want to plug a resource that I have right now. It's free for the month of November, but Fitness for Us, it's an online fitness series. It's mine. That is a way to teach you from beginning to end, especially if you've been struggling with strength training. St. Luke's employees and challenge participants, you can get $20 off for the year. It's $67 a year, which makes it $47, but it's free for the month of November. You can go in, you don't have to log in, just click the button. I just wanted to give you a resource so that you could have a great place to start, and I'll exercise with you from beginning to end. I think there's 10 different videos you can use.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
Friends, we are done. What questions do you have today?
I'm going, and you guys can go ahead and type them into the chat box, or you can say them out loud, whichever you prefer.
Wow, Monique, this is Lisa Gonzer. I'm part of the Wellbeing team. What a great presentation. I see several people are asking if you would mind sharing this slide deck with them, and a lot of people are popping up saying they would love it as well. Is that a possibility?
I'm happy to share my notes, absolutely. Matt, can you help me if we make that available?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Most definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, Lisa, thank you for that, and I'm happy to make it available.
Thank you. Yay!
Yeah. Does anybody else have a question?
I have a question for you, Monique. Again, this is Lisa. Where does yoga fit in? Is that strength training? What are your thoughts on yoga and how that can benefit us?
Oh, it's a great question. So it depends on the type of yoga. So there really are multiple types of yoga, talking about hatha yoga or even things like hot yoga. It is helpful to think about your intensity level doing that type of exercise. So if it feels like in that low intensity level where your heart rate is not elevated, that it's fairly low intensity, where it might have more movements that are more flow rather than stretch and hold, it will fit more in that flexibility category. So we can kind of check our flexibility box. But if you're doing exercise during yoga that is raising your heart rate and sustaining that throughout exercise, typically hot yoga tends to fit that box a bit more. That's where we can put it right into that cardiovascular family. So there is going to be some of that overlap because there's a component of strength training that's going to be in there. There's a component of flexibility, and depending on the intensity, a component of cardiovascular exercise. But I would say just yoga alone is not going to meet the criteria for all of the components. So we would want to pair it with something else depending on the type of yoga that you're doing.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
I have actually one question for you, Monique. With strength training, sometimes you get really sore. And so how do you combat that soreness? Are there any tricks that you have for people just getting into it and they're working muscles they never have before? How do you handle that? Because that can really kind of unmotivate you to keep going.
Oh, Mac, it's such a good question. You're right. And oftentimes if we're feeling motivated, we're feeling encouraged, we tend to start at an intensity level or a duration level that's too hard or too long. And so instead of having that nice introduction to exercise, we tend to have that overwhelming feeling of soreness that can just derail the efforts pretty quick. So the things I like to do right off the bat is make sure that you're choosing an exercise intensity that's right for you. If you haven't exercised in the past month, meaning the past 4 weeks, take it down one level lower than you normally would. So if you're a beginner fitness level, absolutely feel comfortable taking a beginner fitness class or doing beginner or introductory strength training. That's going to be really helpful. And if you have any difficulties with hydration, it's going to make it that much harder. So if your muscles are trying to repair and regenerate through the night on a low hydration status, it's going to make you feel more sore. We know that protein is the building block for muscle mass. It's the amino acids that help to repair. So we want to have a meal post-workout that is rich in amino acids because it's going to help your body repair and replenish itself, which can reduce muscle soreness long term. Just as a quick plug, most people think that lactic acid is the reason our muscles are sore. My coaches all through college made me do these really wacky and weird things to try to eliminate our lactic acid. We know scientifically that is not the case. Lactic acid immediately dissociates into lactate and hydrogen ions. It's the hydrogen that changes the pH, and you actually end up, through the bicarbonate buffering system, breathing it out, which is one of the reasons breathing through exercise is so helpful.
Wow, how interesting.
I know, super interesting.
I like that. So drink more water.
Drink more water, breathe a lot.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Does anyone else, did that spur any other questions?
I have a quick question, but it's more about the Facebook page. I hate to derail this, but with the Facebook page that I log on to, it looks like it's really old. Are there two out there? Are
you on the St. Luke's Weight Loss Challenge Facebook page?
Yeah. Oh, maybe I haven't scrolled down enough. Okay. Never mind. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No worries.
No problem. I have one quick tip before we go today. So especially in the cold and flu season, we know the role of exercise and what it plays in our immune system. So some quick things to do if you're in a gym or if you're working out in a space where there's lots of germs around, make sure that you're washing your hands before you leave the gym. And know the part that's so beneficial about exercise is that our lymphatic system does not have a pump like our heart. Our circulatory system has our heart that circulates all of our blood through our body. But in our lymphatic system, the muscles actually serve as the pump, which I think is so encouraging. We are able to flush out so much of that drainage because of the movements that we do with our upper and lower body together. So stay active, make sure and hydrate. It helps to really circulate that lymphatic fluid and raise our immune function. But right after exercise, make sure that you give your hands a quick clean and then eat some antioxidants, because we do produce some free radicals during exercise. So grab some fruit afterwards and grab some amino acids, and it helps get your body prepped and healthy.
That's fantastic. Love it. Thank you. Yes, I'm looking at another question here in the chat box. The recorded presentation will be available to you all as well. We'll include a link to it in your next e-tip that will be out next Tuesday. So be sure to watch for your emails that come to you every Tuesday morning with your e-tips, and there'll be a link directing you to the recorded webinar. All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Monique. We appreciate your time, and thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you having me today.
Yeah, have a great day, everyone.